AEW could be signing a former WWE star. We're going to talk about that plus a variety of other topics. And trust me when I tell you, 2026 is off to a bang. WWE and AEW are pretty much firing some really good content out there. And there's just so many moves, so many rumors, so many things that continue to make wrestling a very big deal in today's total climate. With that being said, you're now watching The Ango Show. I want to kick things off in today's video by talking to you about AEW signing a former WWE star. This is something that I think is very interesting because does AEW really need another signing? I think that's a very valid question. They're signing everybody. They're signing a lot of people. I think AEW's TV product is really good. So where does this guy fit into the mold? Well, according to Jim Ross, he actually thinks this would be a very logical signing, and that is, in fact, why we are talking about Tommaso Ciampa potentially going to AEW. Oh, Jim Ross. I got a lot of respect for Jim Ross and the amount of knowledge that he has in professional wrestling, but he might be missing the mark here. Now, there are reports that Tommaso Ciampa has some sort of plans to go to New Japan Pro Wrestling and to work the indies. Now, Jim Ross was talking about him potentially joining AEW, and he says that Ciampa's work, he has a lot of admiration for it. In fact, he says specifically he is a good hand, and I think that's logical. I don't know for sure. Where else? What are his other options? They're there. He could also, he could get a deal in Japan. He worked their style well. But if I know AEW as I do, he's somebody you wouldn't pass on. You know, he's a good worker, and he's done, and he's got a lot of name recognition, name identity, and in this business, I like his work. Now, this is interesting to me because he's right. Tommaso Ciampa is a good hand. He's a great asset. In fact, if AEW signed Tommaso Ciampa, I would not be upset about it. I wouldn't. But there's still so many people they've signed that they have yet to put them in a prominent storyline on television. You know, reportedly, there was some things being said this past week about AEW trying to be younger on TV, which was also one of the reasons why Billy Gunn isn't prominently featured on television as much. Now, Tommaso Ciampa is closer to the end of his career than he is to the beginning of it. Tommaso Ciampa going to AEW is a great asset in terms of in-ring ability and character work. But I feel like unless we see a massive amount of talent leave the company because AEW or the talent themselves choose not to re-sign, unless we see that happen, it doesn't really make sense to keep making more signings. This is something I have criticized WWE and AEW for years. You don't need to have everybody signed. You don't. The truth is AEW doesn't need Tommaso Ciampa. He doesn't fill a void anywhere. But that's why I agree with Jim Ross. He is a good hand. I actually like the idea more of Ciampa going to New Japan, trying to win the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. I like that idea a lot more. Especially the other day we were talking about trademarks, the Psycho Killer. Psycho Killer is, I like it. Psycho King. I like those trademarks. New character, heel character in New Japan. I like that idea. But I even said in that video, the reason why I like it is because you could have Tommaso Ciampa also work AEW. Do a dual contract. If you're going to sign Tommaso Ciampa, do a dual contract. This way, He doesn't need to always be on TV for AEW. But when you have something special lined up, you can utilize him. That is why I like the idea of dual contracts so much. It guarantees the right to use him when you need him. But for the most part, he's also, in this case, he would be in New Japan, hypothetically speaking. I like that. I think that's a good thing. And if Tommaso Ciampa didn't go to New Japan, then obviously I would be very foolish to say no to the idea of him going to TNA. Because I think TNA could very well benefit from a legitimate heel, especially when you're looking at the world title picture. So the idea of Tommaso Ciampa going to AEW, I'm not against it. But there's just other things I would rather see. But I do agree with Jim Ross to a certain extent. The only thing I don't understand is why Jim Ross doesn't speak up a little bit about AEW having too many signings. That's just my personal opinion. They have a very bloated roster. So does WWE. Why isn't that talked about enough? Not everybody's going to be able to win a championship in this company. And I think that's a very, very big problem in professional wrestling. It's a good problem to have. You have a lot of talented people, but not everybody could be a champion. And perception is reality. When you see a guy go on TV and they're just not winning championships, you start to question if the company's really behind them. And this applies to all wrestling companies, obviously. So it is something to think about. It is something to be cognizant about. But I just don't really know what to expect from AEW in this regard. And that's why I'll be paying attention very closely. And that's why you should be subscribed, because I'll keep you updated. Speaking of new signings, we should probably talk about Juggalo Championship Wrestling, JCW. I know there's quite a few of you coming to my comments talking to me, telling me, Ango, you need to watch JCW. They're doing a lot of cool stuff. And I will admit to you right here, front and center, that I have yet to watch it. Not because I don't want to, but simply because I haven't had the chance to. But today there was a headline that made me very intrigued. JBL is reportedly in talks to join Juggalo Championship Wrestling. Now, of course, this is coming from Dave Meltzer. You got to pick and choose what you want to believe when it comes to Dave Meltzer reports, but he's now reporting that JCW is reportedly in talks with JBL about him becoming a full-time performer on their weekly show, JCW Lunacy. The former WWE champion has appeared in JCW before, and he is expected to be involved in one of their shows during WrestleMania weekend in Las Vegas. But apparently, there is talks of him potentially joining the company in a full-time role. Now, I find this to be interesting because we've seen JBL kind of do like this weird side quest since like 2024. He showed up in AAA. He showed up in TNA. I feel like he even showed up in MLW at one point. Obviously, we saw him in GCW. It was a very interesting side quest for JBL. And I find that to be very intriguing. So why not add JCW to the mix? Now, one of the things that I keep getting told about JCW is that they're very good at storytelling and focusing on characters, which, as you guys know, I love professional wrestling and I love storytelling and I love characters. When I find time to be able to watch JCW, I will try to find time to watch JCW. It is a very difficult task, currently speaking, with how much wrestling I consume while also trying to plan a wedding. So realistically, when I find some time, I'm going to tune in because there is a little bit of intrigue there. I like the idea of more of these companies popping up. And to my knowledge as well, JCW, I don't know if they're doing a whole bunch of shows in Detroit, but I know they were doing some show, one or two, I don't know, maybe. But I read something online that they've been to Detroit at least once or twice, a couple times, whatever it may be. Obviously, being a Michigander, that's also intriguing because it's been a minute since I've gone to a wrestling show. And, you know, with planning a wedding, it's really difficult to find the time to do that too. But between making all this content and that, there's just a lot of things going on. But you know what? I'm going to make it a mission to go to a JCW show when I see that they're in Detroit. I'll make it a mission to watch it on TV. And if you're signing JBL, I'm definitely going to be intrigued by that. In a way, I kind of feel like Juggalo Championship Wrestling has kind of come out of nowhere, and it's kind of growing, and it has its own little niche, which I think is cool. I think it's fantastic for professional wrestling to have that. Nothing wrong with more companies that exist. You know, I really don't. I don't think that's a bad thing. So I've seen the comments. I've seen people's responses. I've seen what people have had to say. I'm intrigued by it. I want the professional wrestling industry to continue growing. I want more places of work for wrestlers, commentators, podcasters, this, that. I mean, like, there's just a million things that stems from a healthy wrestling industry. And JBL is not like some no-name guy, obviously. I can't imagine him being very cheap to pay for, you know. And I don't know the financials of JCW. I don't know if they have investors. I don't know if they're making a lot of money from this. I don't know. I don't know much about it. That's why I thought this is such an interesting topic, because with wrestling, it's not a cheap business. You want to start a wrestling promotion, it is not cheap. So there is a lot of intrigue to see how it goes. And, you know, JBL doing JCW, like, does that impact what he's doing right now with AAA and WWE and things of that nature? I would like to think not. But I'm cool with it, man. I think this is good for wrestling. I think this is what we need from professional wrestling. I think we need to have more companies, more options in the sense of, like, actual, like, hey, you could wrestle there and pay your bills and, like, do it for real. And I don't know what JCW's viewership is like, but the fact that, listen, man, I've covered every company pretty much there is known to man, like, legit. I don't think I've seen an audience come to my channel more than ever than JCW's audience and tell me, dude, like, you got to watch this. So if you're one of those people leaving those comments, this topic was for you. Just know I support the idea of JBL popping up in there. And what does it lead to? Who knows? But I'm geeked for it. Professional wrestling is better when there's more options. And it's very hard to dedicate time to every single promotion, but who knows? Maybe I watch it and maybe I like it and maybe we'll get more coverage. You never know. I really wanted to talk about AJ Styles and his retirement because there's a couple things that have happened. WWE is basically speed running like a retirement tour, but not really. AJ Styles beat Shinsuke Nakamura at Saturday night's main event. Beautiful callback to their match at Wrestle Kingdom. Very beautiful match. Shinsuke Nakamura actually posted something on his Instagram, which supposedly leaked the idea that he is, in fact, retiring at the Royal Rumble. Now, what's even crazier is that WWE, they do have this retirement match that's going on with AJ Styles, and some people are upset about the fact that it's been like this sped up retirement tour. Apparently, that's not, like, AJ didn't want a retirement tour like John Cena or whatever, so that's something that you have to factor in. But basically, Nakamura did remove that post that confirmed that AJ is retiring at the Royal Rumble. He said that AJ told him personally he's retiring at the Royal Rumble. Could they all be working us? You never know. Professional wrestling's a hell of a thing. There's always that possibility where they could be working us. But however, now PWInsider.com has reported that Styles was expected to conclude his in-ring career before WrestleMania 42, with the Royal Rumble cited as a potential location for his retirement match. This was apparently known months ago, so the retirement plans have been set in stone for a while. Of course, there's always a chance that plans could change, but that seems unlikely at this point. There's a lot of noise here surrounding AJ Styles and his retirement. And the truth is, I think it's a good thing, because if AJ does not get pinned by Gunther, if he does not pass out or tap out or whatever it may be, and he does not retire against Gunther, we are in for a major, major storyline. But obviously, if we see AJ retire at Royal Rumble, then we know exactly what has happened here. Now, what I find to be very fascinating is there's been this rumor that he would be going to TNA. So is there a chance that we see TNA and AJ one more time this year? Is there a chance that we see AJ Styles retire from WWE in front of the WWE Universe, pop up in TNA, and do a retirement tour in TNA, and then come to WWE and work in NXT? Because AJ has publicly said that he would like to work for WWE backstage, whether that's agent, producer, coach, NXT, whatever it may be. So I'm talking about this now because I do think in my heart there is a very good chance that we see AJ retire from WWE. No, we don't see AJ in AEW. But I could see a scenario where AJ does have one match in TNA, and that's it. But if you're WWE, I'm shocked that you would allow that to happen. I feel like you would rather have him have a match in TNA first and then WWE. So nonetheless, it's a very, very interesting situation. But AJ retiring is sad, bro. It's sad. AJ was literally my favorite wrestler, like actual favorite wrestler for a very, very long time. Those TNA days on Fox Sports Network, Detroit, whatever it was, 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon, watching this guy eventually come to WWE, and then me and AJ Styles hanging out on the red carpet of a WWE 2K event, and he handled himself with such class and such professionalism, like a normal human being, talking about old school video games and shit. AJ is the man. A lot of respect for AJ. A lot of respect for AJ. And his career was a hell of a career. And when he showed up in WWE at that Royal Rumble 10 years ago, to now retire potentially at the Royal Rumble, it's full circle. And it's beautiful. And, you know, I didn't need a whole retirement tour for AJ Styles. I don't need 1 year of stories and matches taking up TV from other people. And I'm glad that maybe AJ also kind of recognizes that, because I think the John Cena retirement tour could have been, it was fine for what it was, but I feel like you could have, you didn't have to do that, you know. That's a whole different topic that's arguably going to be debated, and everybody's going to have an opinion on that, but it's true. I don't think John Cena needed to have a retirement tour, but that's just my opinion. So AJ going out on his own, doing what he wants to do, whatever it may be. I'm excited to see what happens. Excited to see how it all goes down. Excited to see what the stories are being told and how the stories are being told and all of that. What is his future? I don't know. But I am excited to see, and I am excited to find out. Okay, now we should probably talk about the Royal Rumble, because more and more surprise entrants are being rumored, but this one could very well happen. Now, Newsweek dropped an article about Saraya, who could potentially be showing up in the Royal Rumble. Now, there's been a lot of speculation surrounding this because there was a significant change for a major convention appearance. The former Divas champion was originally set to appear at the Nashville Celebrity Comic Con on January 31st and February 1st, which 1,000,000% coincides with the WWE Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia. However, the event organizers recently announced that the convention has been rescheduled to February 7th and 8th due to a double booking error by the venue. So, what's very interesting is that Saraya's name was then removed from the updated lineup. And now Saraya is posting on social media of her doing in-ring training. Would you look at that? Is it a coincidence? There's a very good chance that Saraya shows up in the WWE Royal Rumble, and quite frankly, I'm all for it. She left AEW. We all wondered, okay, she hasn't come back to WWE. What's going on? Will the WWE doctors clear Paige? Will they allow her to come back? Will the medical team find a way? I genuinely, in my heart, do not believe that AEW in any circumstance would have allowed Paige to wrestle if they didn't think she could. And the medical team cleared her. She was able to wrestle in AEW. Her AEW run, highly debatable. It had its good moments. Mostly fell flat. I don't know what Paige brings to the table in 2026 for WWE. But considering how her WWE career ended, I don't mind her coming back, having like a final run. Like a proper final run. But I don't know. This is all too coincidental. It's very weird. Don't you guys think it's weird? I think it's weird. But I like the idea of her coming back. And I like the idea of maybe WWE having Paige enter the Royal Rumble. Not winning the Royal Rumble, but entering the Royal Rumble. Eliminate somebody or somebody eliminates her, and that could set up a storyline. I would be down for that. I'd also be down if it's just a one-off, too. I think we got to have those conversations. The women's roster in WWE is completely stacked. I don't know if you bring in Paige and prioritize her over a lot of the other women on the card, but maybe you could find a way to make it work. I don't know. But a one-off in the Royal Rumble is not a bad thing either. Like I said, it's just she didn't have a proper end to her WWE run. And I don't think her AEW run was truly exciting. So the idea of her coming back and having that moment in WWE is something I'm all for. But at the same time, too, let's just call it what it is. I don't want this to be another AJ Lee situation. AJ Lee is part-time in the WWE, and I'm okay with that. But we all know Becky Lynch and AJ Lee is a singles match at WrestleMania. We all know what's happening. And so, while I'm all for that, I don't want to see more and more part-timers in the women's division. Now, if Paige is coming back in this full-time and that sort of ordeal, okay, cool. I'm all for it. But if she's coming back part-time, I don't know how I feel about that. But who knows? You never know. With WWE, TKO, you never know. There's a lot of things I really don't know. But she was so important to the women's division and NXT, and I would like to think that they'll probably have one final run of some kind. And you should, because you should utilize that as a way to put somebody over. And, you know, maybe you call up Tatum Paxley into the main roster, and she needs to go over somebody. That could be a really fun feud. Or JC Jane, you know. There's a million ways you could go about it. If you're the WWE, there is literally a million reasons why you should do it. But you got to put over the future. I think WWE understands that. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'll see you later.